One of the most difficult questions to ask is, are you well? And an even more difficult question to answer is, are you really well? Because I think it's all good for us to continue to layer our responses to other people about our mental state or our emotional state with "I'm fine," just so that we don't have to talk about those things that maybe we are really struggling with, because speaking about those things means that you actually need to start undressing yourself, And I think that's what makes many of us continue to mask ourselves, with the layers of the masks that we wear, with the clothing that we wear, with what we post on social media, to give an impression that we are well, because that is what we've been used to doing. As I'm sharing this, I'm just thinking, Kujisha, when you go back to the beginning, Adam and Eve, I guess that's where the problem started, if I'm just simply reflecting on it. Because it simply means that before we ate from the apple, before we ate from the tree, we were okay with being vulnerable. It's only until we ate from the tree, until we're deceived, that we started thinking that we need to clothe ourselves, that we need to hide our iniquities, that we need to hide certain things about us. And I think that's what's holding many of us back, because we find it so difficult being vulnerable, that we feel we need to mask certain things, we need to cover up certain challenges that we are facing. And that even makes it even more difficult for us to seek help when we get to a point where these things that we are covering up are so big in our minds that we feel we can no longer deal with. It's easy to sweep things under the carpet. It's easy to pretend that all is well. It is honestly easy. But it gets to a point with all that you're sweeping under the carpet, all that you've been hiding, all that you've been masking, starts getting too heavy, starts becoming too big. And when it gets too big, we start feeling overwhelmed. We start feeling that these are problems that we simply cannot deal with. Mental health problems are simply a practice of poor mental health that has led to you getting to a point where your problems seem bigger than you. Your problems seem like you cannot deal with them. And of course, all of us have found ourselves in situations where there's nothing we can do, or we feel like there's nothing we can do to solve the problems that we're facing. But how many of you have found yourself conquering a problem that in that moment seemed impossible? How many of you have gotten over things that when you were going through them, you thought would be impossible for you to get over? How many of you have pushed through circumstances where you had written yourself off? The problems we face are simply problems that if we are allowed to become bigger than us in our minds, in our thinking, lead to us feeling that we can't cope, we can't really deal with this. A lot of the time, we have a tendency of thinking mental health is the problems that we face. Of course it is. A mental health problem is a problem that results from poor mental health. Because I think we often confuse this concept of mental health and we think mental health is mental illness. Mental illness is a mental health problem. And a mental health problem is a result of poor mental health. What is mental health? Mental health is these practices, the daily practices in what we eat, how we look after our mind, how we look after our emotional state, how we look after our bodies, because what happens in the mind happens in the body. What happens in the body happens in the mind. How you behave affects your emotional state. Your emotional state affects your mind and how you interpret whatever is happening around you, the meaning that you give to whatever is happening around you. Similarly, how you think affects your emotional state. Your emotional state affects how you behave. But what are your daily practices? Are you engaging in things that create a good emotional state? Are you engaging in behaviors that affect your mindset in a positive way? Or are you sweeping things under that give the impression that your emotional state is good while you're constantly being eaten inside? You're constantly fighting emotional battles within. How are you taking care of your mental health? The things that you do to maintain your health says a lot about your mental health. It says a lot about what you think about yourself. What are the activities that you engage in? What are the things that you are doing? Are you living according to your purpose? Because every single time you give up, every single time you procrastinate on your purpose, every single time you procrastinate on the things that will help you grow, the things that will benefit you, you can't unconsciously communicate to yourself that you don't care about yourself. When we face challenges that we cannot face, that we cannot deal with, that become overwhelming, we have a tendency of even blaming ourselves. We have a tendency of feeling guilty for feeling the feelings that we are feeling. It's okay for you not to be okay. It's okay for you to feel overwhelmed. You know, we're just having a chat the other day with some friends of mine that, you know, as friends, unfortunately, we created platforms which were great for us as friends, as guys, to come together and bond. However, we didn't utilize those platforms in appropriate ways. In fact, if one came there and said, I'm having this challenge, gents, you know, we would laugh at them. And I said, you know, unfortunately, it is true. We're young, we're immature, we didn't know life, you know, has no formula. It doesn't say because you are educated, you're not going to face challenges. It doesn't say because, you know, you come from a certain economic background, you're not going to face challenges. Challenges face you, whether you are black, white, Indian, poor, rich, wealthy, whatever, educated or not. Problems will constantly come at you. The question is, when they come at you, do you have a support system? Because having a support system is part of good mental health practice. It's part of mental health practice that allows you to be able to cope with the challenges that come your way. And something that we've, you know, and I hope we will create such thing, and, you know, is to start using these platforms where we go for soccer, using these platforms maybe where we go for lunches, using these platforms where we meet, you know, or go for hikes, or have sporting activities to actually meet, have chats, you know, chat about the challenges that we're facing, unpack and, you know, bounce around a few options and solutions. Because what I've realized is many a time we become overwhelmed by the problems that we're facing because we feel our solutions are limited. So I'm encouraging you, please don't wait until it's too late for you to start taking care of your mental health. Don't wait until your mental health is creating problems for you and your loved ones before you start realizing the value of your mental health. Your mental health is the things that you do to simply ensure that you're taking care of your mental health. The different activities that you can do, and there are a variety of ways that you can do that. I mean, a lot of the times we think that going for coaching is only when you have a problem. No, going for coaching is part of good mental health practice. You know, a lot of the times people go for help when they have a mental health problem. In fact, coaching does not even assist when you have a mental health problem. Unless we start looking at NLP, we start looking at counseling. Those are, we start looking at EMT, eye movement therapy, we start looking at EFT. Those are processes that not only help when you have a mental health problem, but also help with your mental health. And I want us to simply be aware of that. So there's things that you can start doing to start protecting yourself from potential mental health problems by simply engaging in practices that ensure that you have a healthy mind, that ensure that you have healthy emotions, that you're constantly processing, to ensure that you're engaging in behaviors that create a healthy emotional state for you. I hope that you found this little snippet on mental health insightful. And please drop in the comments there other topics that you'd like me to address, things that you'd like me to unpack a bit further so that we can educate you about your mental health. I will, in some time in the near future, be launching a course or workshop to assist loved ones on understanding mental health so that they're able to support their loved ones. I think a lot of the times family members, in fact, what I've realized is every single one of us at some point in our lives have had somebody close to us, either at work, at home, or in our community who has struggled with a mental health problem, and we don't know how to support them. Or a friend, a family member to somebody close to us, and we've been unable to support them. And I think this is just information for you to simply just know when somebody has a mental health problem, how do I identify it? What are the potential steps that I can do? And how do I even know what kind of mental health problem? We don't need to be able to know how to diagnose and so forth. It's just being able to identify what symptoms to look out for that enable us to know how it is that we can support that person and what are the different avenues that are available to support that person. There's places that are there that are free. There's places that are available that are at certain costs. But I encourage every single one of us to start taking care of our mental health, because that is how we prevent mental health problems from occurring. I thank you. My name is still Coach Thabiso Mailula. I hope that you found this really insightful, and I look forward to hearing from you and engaging with you as we go on this journey of educating you about your mental health. Your mental health matters.